One seed is all it takes to grow a forest. One candle can light a dark room. One voice is enough, speaking words of love. Each moment becomes what we choose. Do you want a new world? A world that works for everyone? Open your heart and let it be. We can become the new world. Mother Earth beneath the sky. She's waiting for you and for me to be anew. Our dreams light the path for us to walk on. Our songs help our spirits align. And each little child helps remind us why we
Welcome and good morning. This is a delightful day, and this is our Sunday morning broadcast. I'd like to welcome all of you who are listening to us live on Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. We are coming to you from the Live Oak neighborhood in Santa Cruz. That was once the land of the Mutsun, I hope I said that right, Mutsun tribe of Native Americans. Our theme for this month is One Journey, Many Paths. For right now, please join me in some spiritually uplifting music given to it. It's the Season of Love, and it's being performed by the Tesoro Virtual High School Choir.
in truths that she learned, or in times that he cried.
Oh, it's another wonderful version of Seasons of Love. We are a part of a worldwide global movement known as Centers for Spiritual Living. We share a purpose, a vision, and a mission with this movement. We also have our own centering statement for our congregation. Let's say it together mindfully. We are a spiritually progressive community that transforms lives and the world through a philosophy of possibility thinking and responding to life with love. We have a wonderful program for you this morning. And to begin with, we're going to have a quote read by Reverend Tamara Merrill, and she will then give us a brief spiritual practice. We also will be listening to some more music, and then following that, we will hear Reverend Alice give us a talk. Reverend Merrill.
Thank you. The quote today by Ernest Holmes: "The seed of freedom must be planted in the innermost being of man. But, like the prodigal son, man must make the great discovery for themselves." Let us turn within right now. Take a deep breath. I know that there is only one life, one power, one presence. This life flows through everything from the ocean to your heartbeat to the shining stars, the shining sun. And this life that we have, that we live, is by design, not by merit. We have to do nothing to be alive, but we have choices on how we live that life. And here with the message this morning, I know that there are valuable tools and seeds to be planted in our hearts and minds that will allow us to remember that we are whole, we are holy, and we are here by design, not by merit. And so it is. Blessings. Namaste.
Sons and daughters, freedom for earth, sky and water. Freedom, this is a song about freedom. Freedom for our sons and daughters, freedom for earth, sky and water. Freedom, this is a call for our freedom. To feel the choice to open up all the doors. Why must we feel the pain, misery, and agony when we could all coexist in freedom? Freedom. Oh, freedom. Freedom. What is the plan for our freedom? Freedom, freedom. Stand for our freedom, freedom. Yeah.
Well, try to close your eyes.
Freedom,
Visualize what life would be like. Lo diría.
freedom.
Libertad. Es lo que siempre hemos buscado. Por eso mi gente se viene a este lado. Amén.
Everyone needs to be free.
Eso lo quiero sentir dentro de mí, pero a veces ni se puede sonreír. Pero madre me dijo, mijo, no te agüites, busca la libertad, la tienes adentro del alma. Busca la calma, deja que crezca más grande que palmas. No sigas fama, eso no es vida. Pídele a Dios y nada será falta. That's what you want, mama, I'm on. Freedom to feel what I'm not alone. I know you feel me, you could be strong. Put down that gun, put down them drugs. Help out your neighbor and go raise your son. Go be a leader, student and teacher. See the things that you talk about as preachers. Do that right now in the name of your freedom.
Freedom, freedom. This is a song about freedom. Freedom for our sons and daughters. Freedom for earth, sky and water. Freedom for earth, sky and water. Freedom to dwell beyond borders.
It's definitely unmuted, sweetheart. Okay. So, I wish you could be here with us in the sanctuary. You could see how high Susan can jump when she wants to get my attention, when all of my attention is right on you. So what I want you to know is that you have joined Center for Spiritual Living in Santa Cruz, and my name is Reverend Alice, and I'm here to talk to you about freedom, the journey to freedom, and it's one journey, many paths. That's our whole month's theme. And so we just heard Ricky Byers singing that beautiful song, and I was just reveling in the lyrics as she talked about freedom is love in action, and we have freedom to love beyond borders. So here we are, it's the last Sunday in February, and we've been doing this thing about me in front of the camera and you on the other side of the screen for almost a year now. This month, know that it's February, it's also Black History Month, and we haven't talked about Black history much this month, and so I want to talk to you a little bit about that. We have our own Black evolutionaries, and there's actually a 4-part video that I'll try to get a link on our website if you're interested in hearing about the Black voices that came up in Centers for Spiritual Living as we were developing and called religious science. But I want to tell you one particular story that stands out for me. There was a church that was started by a minister by the name of Dr. J. Arthur Twine. And he started the East Side Church of Religious Science in LA. He started it in his home, and it quickly grew to a thriving community. Now, Dr. Twine was an African American, and so his community was multiracial. He had lots of people of different colors. He had Asians, he had blacks, he had whites in his community, and it really began to thrive. And at some point, they were licensed as a full-fledged church, and they were actually the third church to be licensed by Dr. Holmes in our movement, and they were called the Third Church of Religious Science. So it used to be, we have this thing called the Science of Mind magazine, and it used to be that we listed all the centers in the back of the Science of Mind magazine and their addresses, and somebody took it upon themselves to reorganize how those centers were listed, and they took the Third Church of Religious Science and put it to the bottom of the list and annotated next to it, Colored Church. Now you can imagine how upsetting this was to many people, but this was like 1945, so while there were many forward thinkers in the day, there were still a lot of people who were stuck in the way things used to be. And so in 1945, Dr. Holmes addressed it directly by going to the center and speaking to that congregation. And I want to share the words that he shared with that congregation on that day. He said, "I have been told that too many non-Caucasians attend these lectures. True, there are Caucasians and non-Caucasians in this congregation, but this we must affirm. We are all children of one living God. One God that permeates all, without exception. One intelligence that governs all. And most important, every man and woman who abides in the universe is a significant entity in the one universal consciousness. Our doors will forever be open to all. Whoever you are, be proud. You are a divine idea in the mind of God." Now, that was a very strong statement, and that was a very strong stance that Ernest Holmes took in those days. Remember, 1945. And so, of course, the magazine went back to listing all the centers alphabetically. But even though this is a small story, it's a significant example of our philosophy that has never wavered for any significant amount of time from this idea that we are all one. And I think that, it is the small acts that we make, it is the small steps that we take that can write our course, like Dr. Holmes righted the course with this experience for Third Church. That church went on to continue to thrive, and Dr. Twine made his transition, I think it was the year after that happened. But actually, what I want to tell you is that to this day, his great-granddaughter is a minister, Stacy Hilton, in Las Vegas. And so what a great body of work that he's done, and what a legacy he's left for us with this teaching. And what a beautiful example, again, of making the right choice, taking one step in the right direction. Ernest Holmes is famous for saying that we are bound because we are first free. We are bound because we were first free. And what does that mean? He goes on to explain in the Science of Mind textbook that he says it this way: the power which appears to bind us is the only power in the universe which can free us. Through ignorance, we have misused the law of mind. It accepts and creates out of our beliefs. When we realize that we are no longer beholden to the law, but that it is our willing servant, we are free. Freedom is our birthright. It's not an entitlement. I think that sometimes we treat it like that, but when we treat it like an entitlement, what happens is that we begin to inhabit to some degree this belief that freedom isn't a pure quality of God, isn't a pure quality of wholeness that is expressing by means of us. We don't need to prove the truth. We know that freedom exists. But tell that to millions of world citizens and Americans alike who don't know the freedom many of us know. In fact, there's this one study that's done each year for the last almost 10 years now called the Human Freedom Index, and it's a study that uses 76 indicators to identify and rank freedom by country. And what I want to let you know is that the U.S. isn't even in the top 10. We are number 17, tied with the UK. And I think we often take our freedom for granted. It was, 50 years or so ago, almost 60 years now, that we passed the Civil Rights Act. That's relatively, if you look at the whole trajectory of time, that's relatively a small amount of time. And many of the freedoms that we enjoy today are still not fully realized by others. And while we have this beautiful vision of a world that works for everyone, we currently don't live in a world that works for everyone. We live in a world that works for the privileged. And one of our principles states that that one day we will realize complete emancipation from all discord in every nature. And so we have these really beautiful ideas from our principles to our values. All year we'll be tying our principles to our values to look at what these big ideas are. And I say to you, I make the statement that we live in a world that works for everyone isn't true yet. It is a beautiful vision, and we are stepping into it. And those of us that have privilege are learning to use our privilege, are learning to take these values that we hold and let them inform us as we make decisions, as we make choices, as we change behaviors. Reverend Celeste Frazier writes this about in this week's theme. She says, a complete emancipation from every discord of every nature is experienced more readily when emancipation is the consciousness we live from as a result of embodying spirit. We're the ones we've been waiting for. And the journey to freedom is about embodying and living the truth of love, unity, and freedom. Somebody said once that none of us are free until we're all free. In the February issue of Science of Mind magazine, you might have noticed this amazing woman, Harriet Tubman, was on the cover of the magazine. And as we looked at this idea of one journey, many paths, and we looked at this idea of freedom, there's some beautiful articles in the magazine, but one specifically talks about Harriet Tubman. Now, I know you're all familiar with her. I came from Maryland, and so we were very familiar with her when I was going to school, and we learned about her as a great activist and an abolitionist. She was born into slavery in 1822, and it wasn't until she was 27 in 1850 that she escaped her captors. She traveled 90 miles from Maryland to freedom in Pennsylvania. And once she was free, she was called to return to the South, where her family was still living in slavery, where her friends were still living in slavery. She was called back to that dangerous place to help free others. Now, I think you need to sort of get some perspective that in 1850, for a woman to make that 90-mile trek on foot is pretty amazing, and to make it safely. And Harriet was illiterate, so she couldn't write, she couldn't read, but we have the stories that others told about her, and Harriet would say that she would find herself in the woods and lost, and she would remember those beautiful spirituals that her kin would sing on the plantations, and they were filled with secret code words about which way to turn and how to find their way from the deep South into the freedom of the northern states. She would say that she was always guided by spirit, and she was known to pray often, and she was known to pray with the people that she was helping to freedom. She was often quoted as saying that she walked by faith and not by sight. And in her time, in the years that she worked in the Underground Railroad to help free others, she made 13 individual trips back into the South to help free others, and she saved and led 70 slaves to freedom. She had a price on her head. She would have been killed if she was caught. But she knew and understood that her freedom alone was not enough, and that she was in service to the greater good. She's quoted as saying to those who might be overwhelmed with the task before them, she would try to encourage people. And if you find yourself in any, if it's overwhelming when you think about the hurdles that might be before you, that you're called to do, remember these words. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars and to change the world. So how do we realize this powerful spiritual truth of freedom? I want to repeat Holmes again. We are bound because we are first free. So what's typical is that what we often do is we look at the lack of the quality that we're looking for. We look at all the evidence and the conditions of the lack of freedom, as opposed to understanding that at our very nature we're free. And so while we might feel like there are, and we are experiencing these conditions that don't exhibit and don't demonstrate full freedom, something within each human being is already free. So when Holmes says we are bound because we are first free, it is because we are free to use our consciousness to create. And if we are free to use our consciousness to create, well, we've created the conditions that we're living in right now. So if we're only number 17 in the World Freedom Index, and if there's nations that are even further down the list, this is because some piece of us, some piece of our mind, some piece of our consciousness still embodies limitation. We're bound because we're first free. And many of us are bound because of the experiences we have in our societal constructs that keep us in this belief of limitation, of not being free. And perhaps you're experiencing a lack of freedom in your relationships, or perhaps you're experiencing a lack of freedom in your health, or maybe you're experiencing a lack of freedom in your finances. All of those things are the condition that has been created. It is not the truth behind the condition of your true freedom. I think about what comes to mind for me, the first example of this, that we all experience worldwide, is our economic system. It's built on this idea of getting ours, right? We, buy it cheap, sell it high, right? and yet, if I buy something for a really low price, it usually means that somebody was paid a substandard rate in order to create what I bought, so that I could save some money. And I don't say this to guilt you, because even though I know this, there are times when I might need a product that I can't help how it was created or how it was manufactured, but I can try to make a better choice. I can try to make a better choice each time. And so what I want to do is not guilt you, but wake you up so that you can lean into better choices one day at a time. And if you're like me, this idea of our economy, which, how could we ever step out of that system, right? How could we ever extract ourselves from that? Well, I'm going to bring to you the idea that Robert Morrow wrote in a sweet little book called One Step Can Change Your Life. And in it, he describes how taking very small steps, making small decisions, making right choices, helps us to circumvent the brain's built-in resistance to new ways of doing things. So instead of trying to move the mountain, we just take one step at a time in that direction. We just take one choice at a time. We just move our actions and our behavior little by little. Robert Morrow calls this, he borrows the principles from the Kaizen way, which is a Japanese system for many people working together to do big things Every little person does their one little piece of the process. And the Japanese corporate culture creates amazing, wonderful things, but they do it with respect and with dignity and with every person doing their part. You can do something simple. You've heard this before, but I'll say it. You can do something simple as if you don't have to buy it on Amazon when you need something. Buy it local. Yeah. Or maybe your car doesn't have all the buzzers and bells and whistles. Well, drive it a little longer. Or better yet, experiment with alternative transportation. Holmes tells us that through ignorance we have misused the law of mind. It accepts and creates out of our beliefs. And it isn't until we understand that we're not beholden to the law, but the law is supporting us, that we step into this greater idea of creativity that can come through us. Every choice we make leads us in the direction of our intention, but we have to set the intention. And then we can make the choice. And then we can take the step. And it's all about one step at a time. Don't be overwhelmed by the task at hand. Think of beautiful Harriet Tubman. Think of the amazing is not the right word, what seemed like insurmountable task of leaving where she knew she was going to be sold into auction and goes God knows where. She chose to take into her own hands her own freedom. And then once she learned how to do it one step at a time, she showed others how to do it. What I know is we can ask for help. We can keep our heart clear. We can look for that inner guidance that Harriet Tubman tapped into. You will be guided. I'll end with the starfish story. You may have heard it before, but it's perfect for today. One day, a man was walking along the beach when he noticed a boy hurriedly picking up something off the sand and throwing it gently back into the ocean. And as he got closer, he noticed that the boy was picking up little starfish off the sand. And the man walked up to him and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "The tide is going out. I need to throw the starfish back into the ocean so they won't die." And the man looked down the beach and he said, "There are miles and miles of beach. You can't possibly make a difference." The boy listened politely and he reached down. He picked up a starfish and gently lobbed it into the ocean. He said, "It made a difference to that one." You can make a difference with the freedom you have to create freedom for both yourself and someone else, one choice at a time. This is the way that we express love in action, as Ricky Byers was saying in that song, by making choices, by paying attention to our intentions, by waking up. This is the journey to freedom, and it's a journey of love. So let's go ahead and let's go to prayer. Let's move our minds and our hearts to that perfect place of freedom. And so I invite you to take a breath and close your eyes or lower your gaze. And feel the breath as it comes into your body. Feel the freedom of it. Notice that you don't have to guide your breath. You don't have to tell it what to do in your body so that your body temple knows how to take that oxygen and create food for all your organs and your cells. There is a magical, mysterious, beautiful thing that happens by means of just being alive in this moment. And so as we turn ourselves to that miracle of life, we know that there is a power and a presence that is absolutely animating all life. That everything that we experience in our own body temple, in the experiences that we have in our immediate circumstances, in our relationships, in our job, in the way we walk through the world, all of this happens with a simple, single step of taking a breath. And with each breath, we can remember that we are indeed free, that any limitation, any boundary that we experience to that between us and that freedom, any obstacle is temporary. And so I know for each one of us that we allow ourselves to raise our awareness, and we are pulled by vision, the vision of a world that can work for everyone. And we're pulled by principle that we absolutely will know complete emancipation from all discord. And so I know for each one that it is the love and the passion that we have for ourselves and each other that is the guiding light that guides each one of our steps, so that we do make small choices over and over and over again that lead us to the greater good, not only for ourselves, but for all of humanity. We have come so far since Harriet Tubman walked those 90 miles out of Maryland and into Pennsylvania to her freedom, and yet we have so many more miles to go. And so know with me that each one of us walks by faith and not by sight, that we trust that each little action we take is indeed love in action and is indeed leading us to greater freedom individually and collectively. It is with a joyous heart that I speak this word, that I know this highest truth for myself and for each one listening to the sound of my voice. I absolutely know that we are guided, guarded, and protected, and that all we need do is turn our attention to that higher ideal and make the little choices that carry us so far, a little bit at a time. I simply release this to that beautiful action of the law that simply says yes to each one of those little baby steps that each one of us take. And I know that greater good and more good is available not only to each one of us, but to each one in the sphere of our influence. And it is with a grateful heart that I simply let this go. And together we anchor this in that power of love by saying, and so it is.
Oh, let me love in a holy, holy way. Let me love
me share the good that's overflowing. Let me share the good that's overflowing. And let me care for those around the world. Let me care for those around the world. Oh, let me serve in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me serve in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me serve in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me serve in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me live in a holy, holy way. Let me live in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me share the good that's overflowing. Let me share the good that's overflowing. Oh, let my steps reveal a path of peace. Let my steps reveal a path of peace. Oh, let me talk each day a little kinder. Let me talk each day a little kinder. Oh, let me live in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me live in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me love in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me love in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me serve in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me serve in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me love in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me love in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me love in a holy, holy way. Let me love in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me love in a holy, holy way. Let me love in a holy, holy
I love the way that ended. You are the best there is in our lives. We have an abundance affirmation, and I'd like you to say it with me, please. I open myself to receive great prosperity, health, and healing. Gratefully, I receive the gift that I am seeking. I accept my good and send it on to bless all of humanity. I am thankful to be so richly supplied and so able to serve. I am fully blessed, and so it is. Well, I think it's time for thank yous here. We have a broadcast staff, Nancy, Mohini, Susan, and Elijah on Zoom. They have served us well today in bringing this to you. I am also very, very grateful for the Tussaro Virtual High School Choir and Ricky Byers for giving us that musical inspiration for us today. I also want to thank Reverend Alice. She did a wonderful job here today, and we're so grateful that we always have someone who's paying attention to the wisdom of the universe. I also want to thank you. Without you, why are we doing this anyway? I'm so grateful that you have joined us here today. And if you found this message helpful, I would like you to share it with your friends and others. And I would also invite you to subscribe to us on YouTube. That would be a very big help. And also, we are inviting you to financially support us. And the ways in which you can do that, of course, are on the screen here. We also have our own QR code as well. We're going to also be doing another class. This class is one that I have always enjoyed myself personally. Even reviewing it for me, I can never tell you that we always are learning. There is always the opportunity to learn to harness our intentions for what it is that we are looking for in our lives. Reverend Alice is going to be facilitating this class, and it starts on March 9th. You've got until March 7th, which is all this next week, to register. We also have opportunities for you to serve with us. Yay. I think you would find it quite interesting to be able to increase your technical chutzpah. We've got a technical team, and we'd like you all to join that group of people to learn more about how we can get to the rest of the world through this technology. We also have, I've almost forgot. You're going to be glad that you did by joining us on Zoom next week, because you will have an opportunity to see the faces of our congregation together in one way or another. We want to have that opportunity. Then we have the talk after the service, and Reverend Alice is going to be doing that, and she will be available to you on Zoom at room number 831-000-1818, and there's a passcode that's 1818. We are broadcasting on Zoom, and it begins right after this service, and will go for about 30 minutes. Oh, and let's not forget Project to Connect. Kaylee Dugan hosts the Project to Connect Monday through Saturday at 1 o'clock every day. And there is a Zoom room there too. That one is 666-000-6060 with a passcode of 6060. This is an opportunity also to plug into a bit of a spiritual practice with each other. Our speaker next week is going to be Reverend Alice again, and I can't wait to hear what she's got to tell us then. And I also want to say so much again. Thank you for joining us, and have a blessed day and week.